Om Jnanatirandasya Jnanam Janashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Nama Shrishtam Manumapi Satchiputram Matra Sarupam Rupam Tasyagrajamurupurim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhikamadhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nikhila Shruti Mole Ratnamaladiti Nirajita Padapankajanta Aji Mukta Kulairupashyamanam Paritastvam Harinam Samshrayami Anarpitacharim Chirat Karunayavatirna Kaloho Shamarpaitam Unnatoshvalarasam Svabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipitaha Sada Hridaye Khandare Spurato Va Sachinandana Ajanulambita Bhujo Khanakavadato Sankirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Jugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Radhe Vrindavanadishe Karunamrita Vahini Kripaya Nijya Padabja Dasyanmayam Pradiyutam Bhaktya Vihinaya Paradhalakshaye Shipta Shakamaditarangamadhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nityanand Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Gaudiya Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Preman Hari Hari Gaur. So, good evening to all of you. Thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much, Ramanandaji, for receiving all of us, the family, Krishna Chandra, for accompanying us here. And thank you for the invitation to share some words about the topic of self-love in Bhakti. So I'd like to start with Sankalpa. No? Sometimes in our tradition we have Sankalpa, which is setting the intention before we do something. Like to remain intentional, why we are doing what we are doing. So in this case, I'd like to mention a few words why I'm talking about this topic, why to speak about self-love in Bhakti. Just for me to know also, is there someone of you like relatively new to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, to our tradition? Okay.
Yes. No.
We are always new. I was testing all of you. Welcome every one of you. All of us are students forever. So Our tradition, for those who know, is a tradition that emphasizes a type of love with God, with the divine, in very intimate terms. Sometimes we use the word madhurya, many terms to convey this idea of the sweetness of intimacy. A relation with God that is very deprived of formality and the distance that sometimes is created by formality. And interestingly, in that intimacy, in that connection with the sweet absolute, God himself, Krishna, Sri Radha and Krishna, his companions, as you can see in some pictures, they appear in what we may call, in Sanskrit, this is called Nara Lila or Naravata Lila, which means their actions or their actions, we call them Lila or sacred play. When God acts, he plays. He doesn't merely act, but his actions are like a celebration of existence. So it seems like he's playing, he's celebrating. He has nothing to do but celebrate his own fullness. That's Lila, a celebratory movement. In this world, we move out of emptiness and we try to fulfill ourselves. But when you are full, you start to move in a different way. When we are empty, we run after things or whatever, trying to fill the whole existential hole we have. And when we are filled with love and ecstasy, we cannot resist but move, but from a very different way. We start to celebrate our fullness. So that's God's movement or action. We talked about that last week for Sri Krishna Janmashtami, explaining Bhagavad Gita 4th 9, Janma Karma Chame Divyam. Krishna executes Divya Karma. His actions are divine. Divya. And Div in Sanskrit means to play. So the more divine something is, the more playful it becomes. Let's put it that way. So we worship a playful God. We are invited to enter into that play forever. Now, like with every play, every game, there are rules, if you will. If you want to play certain game, there are certain parameters to play the game. Like we were talking the other day, if I want to play chess with you, and I just take the piece and I start to move the pieces randomly as I like, not without following the proper way of playing chess, you will tell me we cannot play chess like that. We have unlimited options, but in certain parameters. You just can do anything and everything. You follow my idea? Yeah. So in the same way, Lila is divine play. It's fully free, fully spontaneous, free flow. But there are certain parameters. It's not that anyone can do anything and everything. And one of those parameters are this notion of Nara Lila. The loving interaction is, the nature of the loving interaction is fully divine, but also fully human. I repeat again. The goal of our practice is fully divine and fully human. It's not half-half or 100% transcendental and zero humanity. It's called Nara Lila, and that's the highest Lila. Krishna Raya Theka Kila Sarvotama Nara Lila. Nara Bapu Tanhara Sarup, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says. Krishna Raya, of all the Leelas of Krishna, of all the divine play of God, the highest one is when he's fully human, Nara Lila, and fully divine. So my point with this is, if in our tradition we want to enter into that realm eternally, where everyone is fully divine but also fully human, it will make sense, at least to me, to take care of our humanity. No? Here and now. It's not that I will go to a place where everyone is fully human, fully divine, but here in my stage as a practitioner, I have half-baked humanity. I'm dysfunctional emotionally, but I expect to enter into that line where everyone is fully divine and fully human. It doesn't work like that. we start to enter that place, and I do like this to give an idea, but it's not even geographically up, down. We start to enter that place here and now. We start to build our transcendental project, our eternal identity in how we choose to behave in the day to day. And again, I'm setting the sankalpa, the intention, why I'm thinking to talk about this, because many times, and that was one of my main motivations in writing my second book, Radical Personalism, which is, okay, our tradition is personalist. We have so many bad things to say about impersonalists, so to say. But, and we claim we are personalists, and we are very personalist, radically personalist. Radical means to the root, radix. And we worship Sri Radhika, whose love is radical. We can make that play of words also. So we are so personalists, but many times, at least what I've seen, and I'm not saying I'm free from that, many times we don't behave in very personal ways. We behave in very depersonalized ways. How we treat each other, how even we relate to God. Like if God is not a person, many times we relate to God like if he's just an object or a provider for my long list of requests, or someone who does not exist and suddenly exists when I need something or whatever. So that's not personal. Or sometimes, again, how we treat each other or even how we treat ourselves. We can treat ourselves in very impersonal ways. All the while claiming we belong to a tradition which is radically personal. So that creates some short-circuiting. If from my mouth out I say, we are very personal and our theology and philosophy is hyper-personalized and this, but then how I behave in the day-to-day is contradicting that, that's not what we want. That's my point. So many times in the name of transcendence, and we have a very detailed tradition where we receive so much ultra-specific information about what's going on in transcendence, right? We even know the names of the earrings of God. Let's put it that way. No. Generally, you don't get that specific, right? No. God has earrings, and they have certain name and certain form, and this and that. We were talking the other day about Krishna's earrings, right? Makara earrings. So my point with this is we can become obsessed with all those details in transcendence, but again, forget about the more basic foundation of humanity. And to speak about humanity and being properly human and learning how to relate to ourselves, all that should be a foundation in the service of our highest ideals. No? Maybe some of you came curious about, like, oh, Maharaj will talk about self-love. What's that? That seems kind of a new agey presentation. That doesn't seem related to the deepest esoteric reach of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But we can talk about self-love and psychological balance in the service of that highest reality. That's the idea. That's the idea. That everything is connected to the center and to our ultimate goal. So I personally, especially the last years, I felt this need on a personal level, and I've realized that many other people also had the need to emphasize some of these aspects, to emphasize how to become a transcendentalist doesn't mean to reject your humanity. Because many times we understand transcend, like you have to transcend. And we understand transcend as rejecting. I have to transcend this, I have to transcend, I have to reject, and we start to conceive our practice in negative terms, in terms of what do I have to reject. And Bhakti, our school of devotion, is very positive. It's not about rejecting anything. As I was saying the other day, last year, I was having a conversation with Sri Radhanath Swami, and we ended up talking like 4 hours or something. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, but what to do? And he was telling me how Srila Prabhupada once, someone came to him and I told him, Prabhupada, for your sake, I'm willing to reject everything. No. The devotee came with a very negative orientation, right? I love you so much that I will reject everything for you. And Prabhupada said, the only thing you need to reject is the idea that you have to reject something. That's the only thing you need to reject. The idea of rejecting stuff. Our tradition is not about rejecting. It's about accepting everything in its proper light. Krishna in the center. Yukta Vairagya, as Rupa Goswami will speak. When you accept everything from the proper perspective, what there is to reject. Krishna is in every atom. What there is to reject. So my point is this: sometimes we conceive practicing spiritual life as, sometimes they say jokingly, like some type of evacuation plan for the afterlife. Like some have to get rid of the here and reject, and everything is conceived negatively. So if you make your first step with a no, that doesn't set well the rest of how the rest of the thing will unfold. Like sometimes I joke with devotees and ask them, so what's your practice about? What's the main aspect of your practice? And jokingly, the devotee will tell me, no meat eating, no intoxication, no this and no that. It's like, no, but what do you do in your practice? The main thing, no. So sometimes we may conceive our practice in terms of what we don't do instead of what we do. And of course, the practice is no meat eating, as we were talking the other day. The actual practice is to be non-violent beyond your diet. And not only to be non-violent, but to be loving and to be caring. Not only to be loving and caring, but to be as loving and caring as you can. That's very different from no meat eating. But that's the actual principle in a positive, profound way. So I think self-love in bhakti, please, yes.
Not suffering too much while sitting.
Yeah, that's part of self-love. You can take your seat where you need, please. Be careful. Yep. Okay. So maybe the question is, okay, we are talking about self-love. Doesn't that sound like a contradiction of terms? Like, doesn't that sound like a narcissistic idea? Like, I will love myself. It's like, the idea was to love Krishna, not to love yourself. So how to explain self-love in bhakti? Now, the title is not self-love. The title is self-love in bhakti. So how can we love ourselves in the context of bhakti? Bhakti means in the context of loving Krishna, and by extension, loving everyone. That's a very important point. Loving Krishna doesn't exclude anyone, includes everyone. Of course, in the beginning, scriptures will say the symptom of a neophyte is, I love Krishna, no? But I don't relate nicely to other people. When the altar opens, Jai Bhagavan, the altar closes and I'm like a different person now. It's like, oh, the altar closed. Let's hide because he's coming now. When the person is a little agitated, open the altar, so it becomes a little bit more loving. So that's the beginning of practice. Okay, at least you love Krishna, quote unquote, you love Krishna. But actually, if you love God, you have to love everything else and everyone else. You cannot separate, because everything and everyone else is connected to Krishna. There's no way of separating. I cannot say I love God and I hate everyone else. That speaks about how much you love God. That's why the highest devotee sees Krishna everywhere. And sees everything Krishna, Krishna, everything. Jomam pasyati sarvatra sarvam chamai pasyati. Krishna says in the Gita, for he who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me and never lost to him, he's never lost to me. Him, her. So here I'm start to make my main thesis. If loving Krishna implies loving everything, because nothing exists disconnected from Krishna, then loving Krishna includes loving myself, because I don't exist separate. Loving myself in connection to Krishna, not as a separate unit. That's the problem. The problem is when we see ourselves disconnected from the center. But when everything is in connection to the center, we can love everything and everyone in connection to the center, and that's love properly expressed. So there is place for self-love in Bhakti. In fact, as we were talking today with Krishna Chandra in the train, he reminded me of this beautiful verse. I think it's from Vishnu Purana, right? Quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Ananya mamata Vishnu prema sangata mamata. Ananya mamata Vishnu prema sangata mamata. So it's there it mentions, okay, you are to have love and mamata and divine sense of connection with Vishnu, with God. But prema sangata mamata. We are also to love the things connected to God. And again, everything is connected to God. Ultimately, sambandha. You may have heard the word sambandha. So sambandha means sambandha. Bandha means, even in English, bonded. Bandha, bonded together, tied, connected. And sam means everything. So sambandha gyan, in our tradition, sambandha gyan means the initial knowledge to educate our practice, spiritual practice. We need some education to engage in practice to attain the goal. So the education we receive is sambandha. It's an education where we learn how everything is connected with Krishna. That sounds simple, but it's not that simple. Because you received information, but then you need to live your life as if that's true. You need to be a living example of that. So loving God implies loving all the things connected to God. In the words of Srila Prabhupada, he will say, if you love me, love my dog. You will love my dog, because you are so madly in love with me that whatever has some slight connection with me, this harmonium, this petal, this carpet, it's everything udipana, everything is stimulant, like, oh, my beloved. And someone's like, are you crazy? It's a carpet. No, it's not a carpet. It's something else. No? So if you love God, whatever is connected to God, you will love it also. And again, the point is that there's nothing that is not connected to God. So at the end of the day, we have no excuse to not love anything, including ourselves. I'm repeating that because we are very expert in thinking, okay, loving Krishna, loving everyone, but somehow we exclude ourselves always from the list. Somehow, no, I'm not saying all of you, but many times as conditioned soul, we have this very deep conviction that we are absolutely unlovable. So everyone deserves to be loved. Everyone has to be loving everyone, but not me. I'm terrible. There's this deep sense of toxic shame, where we are even ashamed of our own existence. In my opinion, that's basically the worst anartha of all, from which come all these other things. Because someone can tell, no, Maharaj, worse than shame is arrogance. And I will reply, no, for me, arrogance is just my attempt to become bigger and special because I see myself so poorly. I see myself as such a bad person that somehow I need to perform. Aggrandizement, yeah. And I'm saying all this so we can address all the things with compassion also. Because sometimes we say, oh, that person is so arrogant. Like he's a bad guy. Instead of saying, no, there's so much shame affecting that person, and we can see that with compassion. And that person may be us. No need even to point outside, because each of us may be on some degree of another affected by these things. So anartha nibriti means to become aware of this. So there is the possibility of loving ourselves. And an important point that I will mention in this regard, and this is something that we have been talking in Ananda Dham during this last week, and also I had the chance of being in a 3-week solitary writing retreat at Champriya Kunj. Krishna Chandraji allowed me to enter the cave for a few weeks by myself and writing a future book that will be on Krishna's unconditional love, which is a very important point for me, which sets a very important foundation for self-loving bhakti. And what's that? Krishna already loves you fully. It's not that you have to become perfect and only then Krishna loves you. That's not a very nice idea of Krishna. No, he's just like indifferent, angry even with you, unless you become Raghunath Das Goswami. That doesn't give too much hope in our practice. And that doesn't paint a very realistic picture of who God is. No? And there are so many quotes in scripture about how Krishna loves everyone, including those who are not his devotees. That's an important point, because sometimes we develop this elitism. Like, Krishna loves us so much as his devotees. What about everyone else? Krishna says repeatedly, there are so many quotes. I was now doing research in my writing. I was shocked how many quotes were there. And I was sharing with devotees, and I was even more shocked how most of us never kind of read those parts. I mean, we read them, but we didn't we didn't have the aha moment, so to say. No? Krishna says just one line. I won't torture you with quotations here. But Bhagavad Gita, no? Suhridam sarvabhutanam yatamam shantim rishati. I'm Suhrit. Suhrit means I'm an unconditional, well-wishing friend, sarvabhutanam, of all living entities. He's not even saying only my devotees, only human beings, every single living entity. I'm the best possible friend, unconditional, loving friend of everyone. He said, Nyatmamam shantim richati. If you want to attain peace, you better know this. That's what he said in that book, in that verse. If you are not aware that I'm the unconditional, loving friend of everyone, probably you won't attain peace. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna then said, how can you attain happiness without peace? Peace may not be our goal, but he's saying peace needs to be as a foundation for real joy and happiness. And for all that to happen, you have to be aware that basically, I love you, Krishna is saying. And then we have to be able to accept that. Because sometimes, again, we are very expert in arguing against that. Krishna says, I love you. No, it's not possible. How can we love me? I'm such a mess. I'm horrible. We may be so convinced of so many stories we tell ourselves about how undeserving we are. But the point is that Krishna's unconditional love works in a different way. Even if you are the worst of the worst, let's put it that way, you are not. But even if you want to see yourself in that, unconditional love doesn't care for that. You can present Krishna the list of all your sins and all the worst things you did, and Krishna still loves you. That's unconditional. He doesn't care for the conditions. Because he is love. Rasuvaisaha samhi vayam ladvanandi bhavati. Taittiriya Upanishad say. Brahman, the absolute, Krishna is part of Brahman, so he's the absolute. He is Rasa. Rasa is the highest expression of love. Bible will say God is love. We say Rasa Vaisaha. It's the same thing, basically. So Krishna doesn't have love. Krishna is made of love. Try to imagine a person who is love, not who has love. So if you are made of love, you cannot not love. You follow? It's like asking the sun to be dark. No, it's not possible. Sorry, I'm the sun. I'm made of light. I cannot be dark. It's against my nature. So Krishna cannot not love. You follow my point? So Krishna cannot. If he cannot not love, he loves in every possible direction, including us. We are not that special that he loves everyone except us. That's another way of false ego. No? Like, I'm so special that everyone is loved except for me. No? Because I'm the most falling and the most something. No? Like this devotee once went to Srila Prabhupada also. Srila Prabhupada, and the most fallen of the most fallen of the most fallen of all your disciples. And Prabhupada, you are not the most anything. If we cannot be the most advanced, at least let me be the most fallen. No, let me receive some medal of the most something. Again, it's a form of an unnecessary attempt to hold a position. I mean, you're already loved by Krishna. What highest honor you can receive? Part of what I was writing the other day was this third verse of Shikshastakam. Trinadapi Sunichi Natadorapi. And all that verse can be read and embraced, at least for me, is very healthy in this context of unconditional love. Because sometimes these type of verses are weaponized. Like you have to be more humble than this and more tolerant than that and offer. And it's like we develop like PTSD, religious trauma with Shikshastakam. That's not the idea, right? So, for example, Mahaprabhu is saying, do not seek respect. And we can say, of course, no. Why? Because I'm already loved by God. What highest type of honor can be than that? If I become aware, the most important person is giving me the most important thing. The most important person is God. The most important thing is love. That's already being given. That's the highest gift, the highest honor. So if you become aware of that, what's the meaning of seeking respect? I mean, that makes sense, naturally. You follow? Or be very humble. Okay, become aware of how Krishna is loving you infinitely, and probably you did nothing to deserve it. That's humbling. I for lifetimes and lifetimes I denied the existence of God, and He kept loving me. That's very humbling. If you really enter into that place, that's more humbling than probably any other thing you have heard. So in this way, each one of these qualities can be understood through this lens, and it's so natural and so healthy. So on this foundation that Krishna loves each of you, we can develop this self-loving bhakti. Our goal of life, of course, is Krishna Prem, we will say, which is love for Krishna. Our love is not love. Our goal is not love from Krishna, because that's already happening. Of course, when we love Him back, He will reciprocate accordingly. That's another thing. According to how you approach me, I reciprocate. But the implication is also, even when you never approach me, I'm already loving you. And when you approach me, I will reciprocate that love. I like to give the example of the mother and the baby. The mother has a baby, and the baby has 2 weeks. The baby is not even aware that he has a mother. He has not awareness that there is something called mother. The baby is not even aware there is something called baby. He's not even aware of himself still. But the mother already is loving the baby. Unconditionally, not sleeping, not eating, just dedicated with love. And the baby is not aware of the other person existing and maintaining him, keeping him alive. Right? So that mother will be like God, and the unaware and unconscious baby is like us. Eventually, the baby grows, and it's expected that the baby will realize, oh, there is something called mother, and she has been keeping me alive for the last years and giving me so much. And naturally comes this sense of reciprocation. So when the baby reciprocates, or no longer a baby, let's say a child, now the unconditional love of the mother that was there from the beginning takes a new shape to reciprocate with the approach of the child. You follow? The love was already there, but now it takes a new shape when the child approaches the mother lovingly. So the same, Krishna loves everyone unconditionally, even when we are not aware, and when we become aware and we approach Him, He reciprocates accordingly. But He was loving us from day one. So the goal of life is not love from Krishna, it's love for Krishna. Because love from Krishna is already there. So Krishna finds each of you amazing. I hopefully it doesn't sound like I'm flattering you, like just saying nice things for you to buy my book at the end of the class or something like that. I'm repeating what he says in the Bhagavad Gita. You go to 2nd chapter, verse 29. He says 3 times. He calls you amazing 3 times. Ascharyavat, Ascharyavat, Ascharyavat. I'm just repeating Bhagavad Gita. Krishna said the soul is Ascharya. Ascharya in Sanskrit means amazing, wonderful, miraculous, shocking. No? Like it's too much, no? Too beautiful, too incredible. Those are the words that Krishna has for each of you. He's talking about the Atma, and just in case, remember, you are the Atma. We are Atmas. So he has to say about the Atma, you are amazing, amazing, amazing. So it's up to us to believe him or not, no? But he's saying that. So there is place to accept that. I mean, there's place to say, I am amazing without being proud of that. Why? Because I can say, as an Atman, Krishna says the Atma is amazing. I cannot contradict that. No? I cannot try to defeat Krishna in argument. No? And Krishna says, you are amazing. I cannot say, no, I'm not amazing, and I will prove you how I'm not amazing. You can sit there, no problem. That's not safe for anyone. Please. No problem.
You can also take the cushion there.
It's fine. Welcome. So Krishna is saying you are amazing 3 times. No? In the scriptures, when you repeat something 3 times, is to make the case clear. No? Hare Nam, Hare Namaiva Kevalam, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra, Sadhu, and so on. So Ascharya, pounding the post. No? Stuna Nikanana Nyaya, the logic of pounding the post to make it clear. Have it clear, you are amazing, Krishna says. We cannot argue. We cannot say, no, you are wrong, Krishna, I'm not amazing. We have to change that verse. We have to re-edit Bhagavad Gita and change the word amazing. No. So there is a place to say, I am amazing, but in a way that is not arrogant. Because why? I, as an Atman, I am amazing, but I am not my own creation. So it's not that I made myself. So I have no reason to be proud of anything. It's just what it is. Acknowledging what's the Atma and what's the potential of the Atma in Bhakti, in love. Ascharya, amazing. I mean, Krishna finds it's amazing. I mean, he's accustomed to pretty amazing stuff. No? We say amazing with anything, like a car, a chocolate, wow, amazing, a TV program, whatever. But if Krishna says amazing, that's amazing. He says it 3 times, so that's pretty amazing. Even if we cannot see that now, we cannot have a glimpse of the amazingness of who we are. Again, we are not our own creation, but who we are. That's there. So we should learn to appreciate that, to love that. Because sometimes in the name of humility, we just bring a whip and it starts to self-flagellate. That's not humility. That's probably some dysfunction that it needs therapy or something. So there is a place for self-love, for self-acceptance. Recently, I read a line in Krishna Bhajanamrita of Narahari Sarkar, and he says, I wish I may I develop love for the holy name. May I develop love for my Gurudev. May I develop love for the Vaishnavas. May I develop love for the Dham. Long list of may I develop love for. And the last line says, may I develop love for my Atma, so I can advance in Bhakti. End of the verse. Because I would say if we live with a very negative sense of self-identity, that's an anartha. That's an anartha that gets in the way. That's an obstacle to Bhakti. That's not humility. I mean, if I make a mistake, I have to repent. And I'm not saying that that's not there. But sometimes we confuse humility with self-flagellation. And that's not humility. Humility is attachment to the truth. In the words of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, attachment to the truth and no sympathy for untruth. So attachment to the truth is you are amazing. You have to get attached to that truth. That's real. That's Atma Tattva, knowledge of the soul. Adhyatma Vidya. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, of all Vidya, of all knowledge, I am Adhyatma Vidya. I am the knowledge of the soul. So knowing what the soul is, you are amazing. That's part of it. Krishna says, I am that. I am fully present when you embrace that idea. So there is place for self-love in bhakti. There is place for starting with a positive orientation. Like we were talking also these days with Krishna Chandraji. Many times we start our day or our practice or our lives with the orientation of scarcity. Do you understand the word scarcity? Instead of one of abundance. Abundance? Wow. That's complicated. So sometimes we start with a negative orientation. Again, I'm unlovable. If I think Krishna doesn't love me, if I think nobody loves me, it's very difficult that I will try to love someone. Try to think this. If you are convinced that you are absolutely unlovable, you won't dare to love anyone because you already feel I'm useless. And the goal of our life is to love God, not even anyone. So, but when you know you are already loved, means if you are loved, means you are lovable. There is something in you that Krishna is loving, and there's something is you, not something. It's not like, okay, one point of view, Krishna loves, everything else he hates or something. No, he loves you for who you are. So I think this is, we were also talking today with Krishna Chand about the need for reframing some of our expressions. So, for example, I'm talking about self-love today. In my experience, 25 years with Gaudiya Vaishnavism, this tradition, I almost never heard the word self-love in our conversations. It was even like, if you say self-love, it's like heresy or something like that. No. What that has to do with my tradition. But when we include a proper word and hopefully explain it properly, that gives a new framework. And when you have a new framework, you can have a new experience. Many times we are practicing bhakti, but we are lacking new experiences. We are lacking renewal and depth and wonder and amazingness and even peace and all this, if you want to call it, basic things. And for that to happen, sometimes we need to bring a new framework to how we are doing what we are doing. Unless we change the framework, maybe we still do the same thing, experience the same thing, and continue practicing, but just out of like in autopilot mode. Not so much because I'm brimming with astonishment at every step. Maybe I went too much to the other extreme. But of a sense of astonishment and taste and purpose and meaning, that needs to be there. Krishna doesn't want us to be like cyborgs, like practicing mechanically and following the right beliefs, but the heart is absolutely like numb. No, he wants us alive, right? So many times we need to learn to redefine some terms, some words, to bring some new words that actually are not new. As I'm trying to show to you, all the things I'm saying are there in the scriptures, are part of our tradition. I'm not creating a new philosophy here. And even when we are able to speak from this perspective, we can even get a new sense of self-identity. How do I define myself? Well, this is a perennial question. Who am I? And of course, we can learn the official answer. No? If someone asks you who are you in a temple, you are supposed to say, I'm spiritual soul, eternal servant of Krishna. You pass the test. But again, I'm not asking here about like the official one-liner, but something that you have to feel and live. So who are you? Who am I? And many times we, beyond the official definition, how we define ourselves internally on a daily basis. For example, one way of is, instead of who I am, a human being, I'm a human doing. Many times we just define ourselves for what we do. No? According to how I perform and the fruits I attain, that's who am I. No? Oops, sorry. I was talking the other day with a friend of mine. He was telling me, Maharaj, I derive my sense of identity from my activities, and now I felt sick for a week, and I'm getting depressed because I cannot do anything, and I feel worthless. Again, and that's the challenge. I mean, we need to derive self-worth for who we are, not for what we do. It's a fine thing, but you have to get the point. Sometimes you may do something, sometimes you may not do something, but still you are something that is loved by Krishna, no matter what you do or you don't do. So we have to be very careful.
Or what you lose.
Or what you lose, or what you gain. All this is flow back and forth. But you still are someone loved by God. And that's from there you should derive self-worth. So I'm a human being. By who I am, by my being, that's enough. That's sattva in one sense. In one sense, we are not even talking about Vishuddha sattva, the highest translation. Sattva. Sat means being. And tva in Sanskrit means ness. So sattva means beingness. So the state where you are who you are, and you are okay with that. It's not that you feel anxious, I need to work, I need to produce, I need to be productive and get this, so I'm someone. You're already someone. Loved by God. So that's important. Thank you. 1 second. That's important because sometimes in the name, even our tradition of service, and I have nothing against service, but we may become like too much of a doer. Huh? Do. And sometimes the extra doing is a way of because we don't have the capacity to just be with ourselves. Because many times we see ourselves too poorly or too badly. And that needs to change. Because again, Krishna says you are amazing. We should learn to hear that voice a little bit more. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, how would you answer that question? Because you were searching so much when I asked you, who are you?
Yes.
So how do you answer?
I'm getting there. A little bit of mystery, suspense. I'm giving just the first wrong answer. No? Sometimes when we say what something is, we have to say first what it's not. Now, so who are you? You are not what you do. No? We should, or at least we should not try to develop an identity based on what we do. Because what happens when we cannot do that? Our identity disappears? No. Some other people will say, okay, I'm not what I do, I am what I have. No, I'm not a human doing, I'm a human having. No? Some people think like that. The more I possess, the bigger I am, the bigger my sense of identity. Unconsciously even. They try to expand their sense of self by acquiring. Although you cannot possess anything technically, and ultimately nothing is yours. Ultimately, you are not even your own. You are not your own possession. You belong. But sometimes we try to derive our identity on what we have. So again, that's not the proper answer. Because again, what we have, what we think we have, at one point, we have to let go. Sometimes other people will also reply to who am I according to what other people think of me. Vox populi, public opinion. Sometimes I derive my sense of identity on the basis of how many likes I received in Instagram today. If my publication went viral, I have a self-esteem boost. Like, wow, I'm so special. Next day, nobody put anything. I got into that deep depression. And again, you are someone else apart from all that, but sometimes we tend to identify ourselves by how other people think of us, whether it is praise, whether it is criticism, and we are losing sight that we are already someone. So that's it. Now we go to the the positive reply. How can we reply in the context of what I'm talking today? How can we reply to this idea of who am I? And I will say, you can reply saying, I'm the beloved of Krishna. That's who you are. You are the beloved of God. Try to stay with that answer for a moment. The beloved, like someone who is loved by the most important person, by the way. And that's accurate. No? That's, I would say, the most accurate way of defining who you are. I am someone who is loved by Krishna. Not to become proud, because as I am someone who is loved by Krishna, everyone else is as well. So we have to be careful also. Like, I'm loved by Krishna, I'm loved by Krishna. Yeah, everyone else also. No? And then comes the challenge. Because as beautiful as it is to say, okay, Krishna loves me. And again, this Krishna loves me is not just to relax and do nothing. No, Krishna loves me so I just can't sleep for eternity. No. If I understand Krishna loves me, I didn't do anything to deserve it. It's so beautiful, unconditional. I feel compelled to return the embrace, so to say. And in the context of that, I realize, and he's loving everyone else. So I need to relate to everyone else, understanding that they are loved by Krishna. That's challenging. We don't treat each other very often as if Krishna is loving each of us, ourselves or others sometimes. So I think that puts everything in perspective, especially when you have some problem with someone and you cannot fully digest that person. Remember, that soul is loved by Krishna. Add that layer to your perception of the situation. From the bigger picture, Krishna is loving every single soul. I'm not saying with this that if we become a serial killer, Krishna is celebrating that. No. But he still is loving that soul, in this case with full compassion for how blinded that soul is. You follow my point? It's not that Krishna loves everyone means like Holocaust ki jai or things like that. No. But at the same time, he's loving from a place of compassion, suffering by witnessing the illusion, the suffering, the tragedy that we find also here. So I think I will argue that's a very healthy way of redefining who we are for ourselves. Well, you can look at the mirror and say, who am I? I'm someone who is loved by God. And on that basis, I can love myself. I can accept myself. I'm being accepted by Krishna. Why I cannot accept myself? And of course, that's another separate conversation. Each one of us have their own reasons why it may be difficult for us to have self-acceptance, self-compassion, self-love, and instead we have self-doubt, self-rejection, self-loathing. So why each one of us have our own story and things that we may need to heal? No, I think that's an important word we need to introduce more in our conversations. Healing. No. There's so much healing that needs to take place in everyone, including Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It's not because we have a very lofty, high theological goal with the net healing. It's not that I received very sophisticated philosophical presentation. I'm beyond all this basic stuff. No, probably I'm in the same way with that philosophical presentation that can help me to realize the things that I need to heal. So, yeah. You want to say something? So you were raising your hand a few minutes ago.
Because sometimes in the spiritual circles, they also, the society looks at you in the concept of Varnashram, like whether you have Kshatriya propensities, Vaishya propensities.
Mm-hmm.
So you are even encouraged to identify yourself like that,
Mm-hmm.
because like that you will like easily also progress in your spiritual
Mhm,
life. So
mhm.
how would you comment?
Of course, there is a place for us to identify with our acquired nature, but I will say that's not our most fundamental identity. So Varna Ashram is there, but that's a relative consideration. No? In comparison with the reality of the soul and bhakti, what does Krishna says about Varnashram? Sarva dharmam parityaja. No? Reject all that stuff altogether, in one sense. No? In the Achana Rapati, famous verse by Mahaprabhu, no? Where he's saying, I'm not Brahmin, I'm not Vaishya, I'm not this, I'm not a sannyasi. And he was a sannyasi, but he was not a sannyasi. The other we were talking about. Imagine if I tell you now, for those who know me and know that I am a sannyasi, I'm not a sannyasi. Probably you'll think, what happened, Maharaj? No? You're leaving the ashram, you have some problems with your vows. No, I'm not a sannyasi. But you are a sannyasi. Yes, but I'm not a sannyasi also. It's like, what's going on? Well, Mahaprabhu said the same thing. On some level, I'm a sannyasi. On some level of acquired nature, social dynamics, but in the most profound level, Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayur Dasa Dasa Nudas. I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of Sri Krishna, the beloved of the gopis. And all these other considerations of the Atma in relation to God. So Varna Ashram has its place on some level. And I will say Varna Ashram because we do not live in, of course, in a Varna Ashram society. So the essence of Varna Ashram basically means be able to ascertain which is your nature and live the balanced human life in terms of vocation, education, be a balanced human being, sattva. Because without that foundation, you cannot practice spirituality in a stable way. But again, that's kind of some preliminary consideration. The real thing is, a little deeper. So, in a deeper way, we can say, I'm the beloved of Krishna. And that's correct. That's accurate. You're not missing the point. And everyone is the beloved of Krishna. And Krishna is loving everything and everyone. So it's simple, but trying to leave these ideas, trying to understand how Krishna is already accepting you. We were talking these days in Ananda Dham about quoting Om, no? The famous mantra Om. One of the meanings of Om in Sanskrit is yes. If you speak Sanskrit and you're having a conversation, you need to say yes. You can say Om. So, and that's one of the names of Krishna. One name of God is yes. That's interesting. Good morning, what's your name? Yes. But that yes means, again, how Krishna is saying yes to us, to everyone. He's loving everyone. Yes, you are welcome. Yes, you are accepted. Yes, you are loved. Yes, you are. Yes, I already say yes. Even though you say no to me, I'm saying, I can only say yes. Yes. Of course, he's inviting us to say yes in return. No? Because he wants to experience the full consummation of the loving relationship, which happens only when there is full reciprocity. No? So we were the other day reading, I won't go there because it's a whole journey, but briefly mention these verses from Brihad Bhagavatamrita, when Bhagavan is telling Gopakumar, like, for many lifetimes you ignored me completely. You were not aware of me at all, and I was so much willing to have a relationship with you, but you were absolutely uninterested in me. And I was thinking, what can I do to get him? No, how can I cannot transgress my laws and cancel his free will. He has to choose. But from my part, what can I do? And all these verses are showing how God is so longing for having a relationship, not only with Gopakumar, but that represents each of us. So how Krishna feels for each one. Srila Siddhartha Maharaj will say in his very beautiful book, Loving Search for the Lost Servant. It's all about what we are talking here. Loving search. God is in a loving search for the lost servant. He will say Krishna is in a mad search after us. It is an urgent campaign. That's how God is running after us, trying to establish a relationship. So if we really meditate on that, that should move us to tears at one point, thinking, wow, how can someone be so loving, so incredible? And from that place, I'm invited to relate to him. That, for me, that's a very healthy foundation. No? Like when you know that Krishna loves you, then you can try to love him back for the right reasons. If you think Krishna doesn't love me and you try to love him, probably you are trying to love him for the wrong reasons. Because you think he doesn't love me, he must be angry probably. So I have to love him because maybe I'm back into samsara. I may be born as a giraffe in my next birth. Whatever. So I have to love him. It's for the wrong motivation. But when you understand he loves you absolutely, naturally you feel compelled to love for the right reasons. And in that context, again, you can love everyone else, including yourself. So ultimately, self-love and bhakti are inseparable. I cannot talk about bhakti without self-love. If I'm talking about, I'm practicing bhakti, but I'm hating myself, that's not bhakti. Because again, bhakti means loving Krishna and loving everything that is in connection to Krishna. And everything is in connection to Krishna, including you. When the official definition of bhakti in our tradition, given by Rupa Goswami, Nyavilasita Sunyam Gyan Karmadhyana Britam Anukulyena Krishna Anusilanam Bhakti Ruttama. Jiva Goswami comments on that verse, because the verse says Krishna is the object of bhakti. Krishna is the perfect object of our love. And he comments, okay, that's true, but that's a narrow definition, he says. To have a broader definition, we have to say, you have to love Krishna and whatever else is in connection to Krishna. That's a broader definition. And again, whatever else is in connection to Krishna is everything else. And that's the definition of bhakti, what we are supposed to be doing. Not, again, loving Krishna and hating myself. The other day we were having, some of you told me you saw it, we had I have a podcast and I invited Mahatma Prabhu, and we were talking about this theme, and we were laughing. I mean, it was a nice conversation because the format was, okay, he has like some maxims on self-love. So we made this play like, okay, you read one maxim and I will be the Purva Pakshi. I will present all the arguments against that maxim that generally sound in our mind. I will be like ruthless, like, and then you have to counteract that. And then the opposite. I will read one maxim and you have to start to try to convince, no, you are not lovable, you are a monster, you are horrible because of these. So the whole conversation went back and forth like that. It was good. And at one point we were laughing because he said, yeah, who wants to be part of a movement where the result is that you feel terrible about yourself? No. I don't want to be part of that, he said. No. The result of bhakti is that I feel horrible about myself. That doesn't make sense. That shouldn't happen. But sometimes it happens in the name of, again, humility, surrender, whatever. So we have to find a way of practicing bhakti that is relatable, relevant, sustainable, human, and which has common sense, basically, which is not so common sometimes. I'd like to call it uncommon sense. It's simple, but it's uncommon. So you were raising your hand some minutes ago?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
You said we can answer the question of who we are by I'm the beloved of Krishna. So I would say more than 95% just tell it from their head, but not realize it. So
yes.
I wonder how do you feel in that space? Maybe you could share your personal experience, being yourself. Not only feeling yourself, but being yourself. Because I remember one quite intense experience where I somehow for a moment lost the ego of low self-worth, which was interesting. I go to that place where I felt very calm and peaceful, but then asking, and now how, like, who am I really in essence?
Mm-hmm.
And I also wonder, maybe that's the second question, how we can distinguish the qualities we bring as souls uniquely and from the qualities we carry in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's difficult to understand the question. We have some our soul's essence in the unique expression with the Lord is very individual, and I'm sure we bring things in this life
Mm-hmm.
we share
Mm-hmm.
in our essence. It's not all conditioned nature,
Mm-hmm.
most of it maybe, but not all.
Mhm.
So when we come closer, how is this experience? Because I feel there's a lack of experience. Sometimes you just say, yeah, we just keep on chanting Hare Krishna, which is still common, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need to look at all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and we are not going deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel, there is a lot of healing in that sense needed, as you said.
Yeah.
And still the word is still, I face a lot of adversity when I come with the topic. And it's a pity, because I'm also interested, how can we move together, as a movement of the Hare Krishna movement of the future. I really wonder how we can proceed in that field together.
Mm. Okay. So I will say something. Again, I'm not trying here to give any definitive, conclusive answer. Here's the formula for the Hare Krishna movement of the future, and you do what I say, and everything will be. No. I'm not saying that. I'm just clarifying for, just in case. No. Yeah. Because sometimes part of the problem is also over idealization of the speaker. Right? So I try to make that clear. No, it's not that because I'm a sannyasi, whatever I say, this absolute revelation that has universal application and blah, 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 blah. So that's part of what needs to be healed. That's separate lecture. So, of course, again, we are talking about these things. There are a few questions there. So we are talking about these things about, okay, I'm the beloved of Krishna. And one thing is to talk about it. Another thing is to live as the beloved of Krishna. And that's a process, of course. That takes time. It's not like, okay, after this class, you just are there. But I would say as we were talking also with Mahatma Prabhu the other day, he told me, okay, for a few days, he told me, I remember I enter into this space, okay, I will live as if Krishna loves me. For not doubting that, but just having that more present than anything else, like a bow of awareness. No, I maybe put signs in my house, in the mirror, listen to lectures on that, read on that, talk to me on that, and I will immerse in that particular aspect. And he told me, yeah, I did that for 2-3 days, and he said I was kind of intoxicated. It was so uplifting and nourishing, and it's interesting to really leave from that place. No, it was no longer just theory, but he said I was having an experience, and I was in a type of trance, some form of samadhi, just keeping the awareness. Krishna loves you. Krishna loves you. And again, it's not a press a button and it's there. It may need a discipline, a practice of ourselves bringing that to mind as we are using it now. Hopefully after the lecture, we don't forget that absolutely, but we have to do something to how to keep that. No? So I personally try to, especially when, of course, and sometimes we may not be aware, but when those voices of negativity come, or perfectionism, or comparison, no? Let's be honest, those things are there, right? You know what I'm talking about? I'm not the only one. Thank you. And what I'm just saying is important also, because many times we think I am the only one, and because many times we are not opening circle to talk about these things. So each one is with their own shame, fear, doubt, negativity, but we don't dare to open, because again, this fear of, oh, what if they came to know that I'm like this, and I will be rejected, and I will be alone, and I won't belong, and everyone else is feeling the same. Well, actually, if there's a safe space that we can craft and create for everyone to, again, be who you are, accepting Krishna already loves you as naked as you are, so to say, your imperfection, let's put it that way. Oh, that's so empowering. That's so empowering. So something that helps me a lot is that to have some people, also not to make it so abstract that Krishna loves you unconditionally. You can say, okay, but what about something more concrete in the day-to-day? So we need the relationships that somehow mirror God's unconditional love. We need to relate with people that accept us unconditionally, that love us for who we are, no? And that people exist, just in case. If you doubt me, maybe they're not everyone, but that's what I would call sadhu sangha. Sat sangha. Sat means, in one sense, honesty. Satam. No? The Bhagavatam used the word satam to refer to someone who is very honest. So sat and sangha also can mean attachment. Not only association. So sat sangha can mean attachment to honesty. So it means a circle of people where everyone is attached to be honest to each other. In my definition, that's sadhu sangha. If that's not there, it's just social dynamics, probably social performance. Let's put my best smile for the Sunday feast. Haribo, everything nectar, jai, go, Haribo. And everyone goes with their unresolved stuff back home, feeling lonely, not being able to. Guhyam akyati prichati. Rupa Goswami will say, reveal your mind, open your heart to each other. That's a way to show your love. So for me, at least personally, that's such a powerful moment to be with people that I know I can be myself. I don't need to pretend. I don't need to make a character. I don't need to perform. I don't need to impress you. I don't need it because I am who I am. And I know at the foundation that Krishna loves me. So I don't need to make anything more than that. What's more than that? No? So I can be as I am, and some days it will be messy. Some days the day will be cloudy, won't be sunny, so to say, internally. And there's acceptance in that. It's okay. It's not that you need to be impeccable 24/7. That's exhausting, and that's hypocrisy. That's not how the spiritual journey goes. It doesn't go like this. Again, we were talking the other day. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes the stages in Bhakti, Madhurya Kadambini, and when he goes to Bhajana Kriya, or the practice, devotional engagement, he describes Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, unstable Bhakti. And one symptom is more embarrassing than the other. And if I start to describe them, you will be like, yeah, Maharaj, yeah, 2, 3, yeah, 4, 5. But he's describing them as this is part of the Bhakti journey. So that these symptoms, as embarrassing as they are confirming that you are on the path. So they are giving hope because they are saying you are on the path. This is not the final goal. Still maybe a little embarrassing, but it's glorious at the same time because it's part of Bhakti. So again, I think we need to practice and live from that place of accepting those things and normalizing those things, because sometimes we have been very expert in stigmatizing what should be normalized, or sometimes traumatizing what should be normalized. Like, I'm having struggles. You shouldn't be ashamed of that. That's normal. I mean, you are not the prema bhakta, so it's okay that you're actually, you should have struggles for the stage you are. It's a normal symptom of where you are. So instead of hiding, denying, repressing, it's like, yeah, the fact that I'm struggling is confirming that I'm on this stage of bhakti, which shows that I'm on the path, which is glorious. Again, not to promote the thing, and therefore I relax and do nothing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying accepting. No? So, in one sense, entering into this mode of practice, I will say, in my opinion, is the future of the Hare Krishna movement. No, it doesn't have for me to do with like outer expansion and taking over the world. I mean, that's not happening. And I don't think that will happen, and I don't think that needs to happen. I don't need to have to see every inhabitant of planet Earth chanting Hare Krishna. That would be a little like fanatical. Like, I need all of you doing what I'm doing. No, it's okay. How converted I am. No? We want to convert other people, but we are not fully converted ourselves. So it's easier to change the world than to change ourselves, literally. That's why we sometimes want to change the world so much. Because it's easier. No, it's difficult to sit yourself with your own stuff and dealing with that and confronting your shadow in Jungian terms, do shadow work. Oof, that's like intense. That requires courage. That requires integrity. But that's what Krishna is calling you to have. That's what, if you read the Gita, he's calling you to be brave and courageous and sincere and honest and be willing to go through whatever. No, so that's what's coming now. Many other things could come, but that's what came now. I hope that helps. So much can be said, of course, no, but yeah.
It's a vast ocean, the topic.
Of course.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's beautiful also to know that we can never end the conversation. So we have eternity to continue sharing. That's why we need eternity to continue, because there is no end.
So I can understand intellectually what you spoke about, satsanga, attachment to honesty, being in a group of people who are supposed to be loyal, and that is the mood. The same about how we are all loved by Krishna. So there are no arguments, but still, when I am part of satsanga, I put up a face, mask. I'm not really genuine person who I really want to be. I'm in a role of, what you're supposed to do in such gatherings. When I come to the temple, I also say, Haribol, how are you? It's nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm not against that, just in case.
I know. But I want to have deep relationships with others. I want to be genuine person.
Yeah.
Everything I do.
Yeah.
So what are your, do you have any kind of signposts where I can catch myself being in that role, and then just to meditate on something that pulls me out of it?
Thank you. Well, of course, just by making this comment or question, you are doing that. You are being honest and sincere. So you can, there's some improvement. So if you want to put it that way, like just show the concern for, I want that. If you want that in one sense, means you already have that. And that's why you want that, and you want more of that. No, so that's in its. I say it's good to appreciate that. No, so not to feel I have nothing of that. No, something, of course, more can come, but that's there, and the willingness for more is there. The thirst for more is there, because it's in Prabhupada's terms, param drishya nivartate. That's a higher taste. Now, when you are able to be yourself without masks, fully yourself, fully accepted, not judged, not labeled, not put in boxes, but just received. Again, that feels like home. You feel part, really, of something. It's not just like... At the same time, as you mentioned, I understand that there are social dynamics. Again, I'm not saying that stop saying hello, how are you, and Haribol, and just go straight to the issue. Like, okay, let's confront our shadows. Just to clarify, because someone may think, oh, Maharaj wants hardcore style now. No? So after the class, everyone sit one-to-one and let's go to the core of the... No, I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that everyone is willing to do that. No? So we cannot also force that. No? If someone is not willing or ready, whatever, no need to criticize that person, but we cannot be naive and expect, oh, everyone will be fully able and ready and capable of those interactions. No problem. No, probably you will be maybe able to count them with the fingers of one hand. And that's okay. No, that's my point, because maybe we are like, okay, I would like to have that Sangha, and we may be looking for a whole community like that. And maybe you won't find it. Hopefully you find it, I'm not saying, but sometimes it's just more another person. Even if it's one more person, that you can be in that type of quality interaction, That's it. Again, we don't need massive gap. I mean, you cannot be fully deep and vulnerable with 3,000 people. No, it's like, it's not possible. No. So it's a process also. No, again, it's not that, okay, we met and after 5 seconds we are like, no, it takes time and we know each other and gradually we are trusting each other. And I open a little bit, let's see what happens from the other side. Okay, it worked. I open a little bit more, still working. So it's a gradual process. It's natural. And I don't know you, of course, and most of you. So some of us sometimes also come with our own, I don't know, childhood trauma or situations of abuse where it's not so easy to open, where it's not like you cannot just, come on, open, be vulnerable, surrender. It cannot happen. Like, so each one has their own timing. But yeah, I will say if one is really looking for that, feeling that need, that in itself will attract people that will connect with, appreciate that need. And again, not over idealize how that will happen, how many there will be, from which direction it will happen, but being attentive to where I can have this significant relationships. And again, even if it's one person, because if there are more, great, but it can begin with one person. And I would say that, and personally, I would say as part of the future of the Hare Krishna movement, that it may be nice that sometimes in the context of what we understand as a, let's say, temple program, we can create some spaces for that type of sharing. I feel that will add another layer of depth. I'm not saying cancel the kirtan, cancel the arti, cancel the Hare. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying let's create, not by force again, but somehow or other, we have to be creative in how that happens, but to promote. Because if not, one goes to the temple and one thing, okay, that's what's supposed to be a devotee, was supposed to go to the temple, and this other thing is, I'm not seeing it, so it must be not necessary. But there's something here that tells me I need it, but nobody's doing that. And again, if one takes some initiative to say, we are creating, I don't know, this circle of sharing, whatever name you want to put it. And that's sadhu sangha again. It's not like a new fancy strange thing. It's just sadhu sangha. No? And again, it cannot be imposed on, okay, this is the new format, all you go there. Sometimes it's more personal. But I think the very fact that we understand this necessary, this important, this part of the practice, crucial part of the practice, and you pray for that sincerely. Yeah. The rest is just have the antenna attentive, and for sure, probably we are already surrounded by more than one of those people. But the point again, we need to get to know each other sometimes. And that takes time, but it's okay. No rush. I hope that helps.
May I add
Thank you.
something on the note?
Sorry?
May I add just
Yeah, of
something
course.
on the note? Like what I had some situation. I don't know when it started, but some years ago when I just couldn't come anywhere, and then people ask me just to say, "Oh, I'm doing great," and I started to doing a little practice. When people would ask me how I do, I would really tell them how I do. And some people would panic and run away from me, and some would really stay and really start to say, "Hey, I can feel it," and then reply to it. And this is something I still do, and it's beautiful because
So you know who is your tribe.
because people who really then can't and they don't really care, and then you just say they run away, and then people that after some time people stay who really
That's
who
great.
really want to know how
Yeah.
you're doing. So I feel it's a tested thing for myself.
Yeah.
So.
Because thank you. Actually, it's funny because I used to do the same thing myself. In Argentina, I'm from Argentina, and people, it's used to say, I mean, I can't say in Spanish, but you don't understand it. How are you doing? And people say, todo bien. So todo bien means everything all right, everything fine, everything. So there's no place for end of the conversation, basically, right? And sometimes, again, people ask me, how are you doing? And I say, well, or even something that they do in Argentina. This is even more dysfunctional. They say, "How are you doing? Everything okay?" No. So you just have to say yes. You cannot say no. You have to say yes, because so that's implying the question: how are you? Everything fine, right? And I say no. And then again, some get or like, what happened? Some big tragedy happened. No big tragedy, but I mean, life is happening. No? And as you say, I appreciate the point. Like, those who care will empathize, but that's a big work also. It takes time and energy to listen. That's another whole conversation. But listening, that's not so easy as it sounds. Listening to the other person, being empathic, listening without judging, listening without saying good, bad, wrong, just listening, being fully present, accepting the person without labels. That's not easy. But that's important. Paul Tillich, Christian theologian, will say listening is, how to say, the first duty of love is to listen. We have Shravanam first. Kirtan ambition is first listen. Of course, sometimes we think Shravan is listening to the class, but also it's listening to each other. Becoming listeners, that's the whole art. But that also shows I care for you, no? And you can see, okay, that person cares for me. I can invest myself because that person is willing to receive me. It's not like quick, like, okay, let's finish this as soon as possible because it's a big responsibility. I don't. So yeah, that's another way of having the right radar to know, okay, who is really willing to for this adventure, this project. Yeah. Some other questions? We are more allowing questions and answers dynamic. So yeah.
I have two questions.
Yes.
My first question is about when you said that Krishna loves us, and then sometimes we are in a situation where we really suffer, and even some people say like, "Oh yeah, it's the will of Krishna," and so on. And then you're like, "Okay, but why does he want to? Like, why would that be his will?" You question these things. So that's how to see yourself as loved by Krishna in those situations, and especially if a person who says that is a spiritual authority for you, in a way. Maybe not a guru, but for example, in a community. That's my first question.
Okay, let me answer that one first. Yeah, because maybe it goes in another direction and I don't want to. That's a huge question, big question, and it can be answered in so many levels. In fact, the next chapter of the book I'm writing on unconditional love is suffering. How to explain God's unconditional love with the suffering we see in the world, and it's complex. It's not as easy as we may think. So it requires lots of unpacking, but I will say something. I'm not the person that will say, Krishna is, you are suffering, Krishna wants you to suffer, Krishna is sending that. I won't make it that way. No. I will say Krishna loves you unconditionally in every moment. Unconditional means in every condition, including suffering. You are suffering, Krishna loves you. No? He's compassionately empathizing with your suffering. He's seeing you suffer. It's not that he's celebrating that. He's suffering along with you. So, and we are suffering because, I mean, I'm talking in general, I'm not addressing any particular thing, but we suffer because of the result of our activities. So Krishna cannot get in the way of that. Because if he gets in the way of that, we have no free will. If just Krishna gets in the way and that's what, so do we have any choice at all? So we have, I mean, sometimes I made this in this way, although it may sound strange. Because some people say, okay, because there is suffering, God does not exist. Long argument.
Theodicy.
Yeah, theodicy, the problem of evil. And that's foremost the main reason why not to believe in God, let's put it that way. But we could say also, you suffer because God loves you. And what do I mean by that? No, I'm not saying Krishna is a masochist or something. I'm saying Krishna loves you, as we already mentioned. And he mentions, it's not that I was mentioning, he's mentioning. So Krishna loves you, and he wants you to love him back. I mean, he wants the full consummation of the relationship. So for you to love Krishna back, you need to have free will, because love is a voluntary decision. No, so for you to have free will, you need to have a few choices to make. You cannot have just one choice. It's not that Krishna loves you and I give you the choice to love me back, and you ask, and there's a second choice. No, there's only the choice to love. There's no choice, right? If I give you only one choice, how can I call that a choice? You need to have a second choice minimum. And of course, the second choice is not loving Krishna, with all the consequences of that we call eventually suffering. But it all began with, he loves you, and because he loves you, he gives you free will to love him, and free will requires a second option, and the second option may end up in suffering, and you end up suffering, but the beginning is because Krishna loves you. But we need to play out that sequence properly, so we don't become like disturbed thinking, oh, Krishna wants me to suffer, he's sending that, or he's chastising me because I made some aparat that I don't even know which was, but for sure there is some aparat. And yeah, unfortunately, and of course I don't want to speak for whomever that spiritual authority was and say, I don't want to get in between what other devotees are saying, and I'm talking beyond that, but many times, unfortunately, sometimes at least in our community, and again, my second book is a loving constructive criticism to the present state of our community and the things I feel I need to change. And one of those is that we weaponize a lot ideas like aparat, like something you must have done some aparat, no, or be careful, you'll do the, and we create this culture of fear basically, and paralysis. And even when we are thinking too much, don't think too much. No, that's not good. No, you will be, no? So no critical thinking, no, all these type of things that can be cultish, no? End up making for a perfect cult. We are not a cult, but we can represent our tradition in a very cultish way. We are very expert at that. So, something like that. But I will emphasize, in those moments of suffering, Krishna is there with us more than ever. Let's put it that way. But we need to bring that to mind, because if in our own minds we think he's far away, chastising me, wishing me that I suffer, that's our own projection of who Krishna is. That's not my Krishna, so to say. So we have to be very careful which version of God we have in our minds, and sometimes, again, so many filters are there. If you have some unresolved issues with your authority figures at home, sometimes we project that onto the ultimate authority and gets totally messed up. So, yeah. Second question.
Yeah, that's connected.
Okay.
The last thing that you said to my second question, and that is like, how is and it's actually maybe requires a lot of time to answer, because how does a person who is on the spiritual path heal? Like, does this healing mean like, oh, we take a necessary help of a psychologist because we have, I don't know, some abuse in our past, so therefore we cannot overcome it to maybe spiritually advance? Or my question sometimes is Maha Mantra enough? Because it has the power to clean the heart. So what is the real healing, and what can I practically do in that?
Of course, I can only give a general answer because each case is unique. But I will say that I'm not the person that if you come to me with some problem, I will just tell you, just keep chanting. Or sometimes even worse, just double the number. I've heard that. And you come then a month after, it's not working. Triple the number now. No? And it's not working. And what's the conclusion? You will conclude, I must be doing something wrong because it's not working, or this thing doesn't work. And I leave it all together. So that's not the idea. The idea is probably, in some cases, for sure, I may need some therapy. I mean, it's a complementary healing. I mean, I'm sick bodily, I go to the doctor. I'm sick psychically, emotionally, why not to go to a professional? Again, I'm not saying with this everyone has to do that. I'm not promoting Ramananda's as a psychologist. I mean, I'm doing so, but I'm not saying everyone should be. But in some cases, people need some professional, because not because the holy name is not enough, but because we don't have the full capacity to extract all that the holy name has. Yeah, in principle, everything is in the name of Krishna. In principle, just half a syllable can take you to perfection. In principle, there are those verses in Shastra, and we are told to think that those verses are exaggeration is an offense. In principle, if you chant fully, perfectly, all that stuff, half a syllable, gone, so to say. Now, in practical reality, raise your hand those who just did half a syllable and went into samadhi. Probably not. So again, it doesn't mean, oh, this name is failing, not working. It's just I have some capacity to draw from that, and as long as I don't have the fuller capacity to just be enchanting, and I'm receiving everything, I may need to do some other things. I may need to sleep. I may need to eat to begin with, because at some stage you may even forget about those things. But now will be unthinkable, dysfunctional. No? Like, I don't know, read again Raghunath Das Goswami's life. Okay, from now on I will sleep just 1.5 hours per day and offer 3,000 obeisances per day and chant 3 lakhs. Probably you will end up in a psychiatrist or something by following Raghunath Das Goswami. By imitating, not following, imitate. So yeah, in some cases each case is unique. So each case comes with their own thing. Of course, the balance is delicate, because also we can end up giving over importance to whatever is not bhakti, and somehow in our minds diminish what's pure, spiritual, and transcendental. And instead of saying, I'm addressing different dimensions, so to say, of my current existence, spiritual, physical, emotional, physical, and each one requires their own integration, probably. So for me, yeah, personally, spirituality is a lot about wholeness and integration, instead of just like an ascending journey to the beyond. For me, it's more about integration and wholeness here and now, and that warranties everything else. That doesn't get in the way of the ultimate goal. So it's a general answer. Again, every particular case, of course, needs some more personalized, detailed following. But yeah, I would say sometimes we need, and many times, I'm not giving here a universal recipe, but many times we just lack what we were talking before, some honest, deep, open relationships with whom to be totally honest. That can be so healing. That can I'm not saying that if you have that you don't need anything else, but I will say even in previous times, let's say in the village times, sometimes with the whole village will get together at night in circle around the fire and share their hearts with one another. In one sense, that was therapy. Now we need to go to someone that will listen to us. And I'm not criticizing that. I'm just mentioning how much we need to be listened, to be received, to be heard, to receive some feedback from a place of care. So, and many times we don't have anything of that. So that's having that can be so therapeutical, so healing. So again, I'm not against doing therapy, but also I won't say I just have one problem, just go to therapy and expect magic to happen, so to say. No, we have to also do as much as we can. And even in our spiritual circle, I'm not saying I'm accomplished, but from my own experience, there has been so much healing personally in being able to be listened as well as to listen. It's always reciprocal, right? To give, to receive, to open, to allow others to open. And it sounds so simple, but there's so much power if we enter that, really are present there. So I will try to emphasize that, trying to find those people, those moments, and even make them part of our, hopefully, daily life or weekly life or something. And if something else remains to be healed or treated, and okay, yeah, we can resort to some professional assistance, help. Yeah. Because sometimes we need people who is professional also, right? That I'm a sannyasi giving this lecture doesn't mean that I can be professional in assisting you psychologically or any other area that is not my area of expertise. So, because sometimes we tend to go beyond our area of knowledge, especially if you're a figure of spiritual authority, quote unquote, and sometimes you kind of end up concluding, I need to have answers for everything. So I need to become expert about marriage counseling and financial development and Shastra and science and history and paleontology and everything. And it's like, no, it's okay. Yeah, everything. And that's delicate because sometimes the person feels urged to that and the audience demands that. So we create this codependent dynamic with everything is over idealized and over expected. And in time, that's unsustainable. It's superficial. It's not real. So it's good to also say sometimes, I don't know. It's okay. Krishna still loves you. Yeah. Something else, Madrasa?
Another layer of what your response to her, Maharaj, is to have a conceptual framework that supports all of these things that you're saying. That has these pillars built into it: vulnerability, relationship. You know, if we are in a community where this Sambandha Gyan is not supportive of those things, then it's difficult to find that.
Yeah, and you mentioned this word vulnerability. That in my book Radical Personalism, there are 3 parts. The last part I mentioned like 7, what I would call pillars, and for me the first one is vulnerability. Like if we do not know how to be vulnerable to one another, nothing comes after that, because the first step is like. So we need to show ourselves for who we are. Now, there's this interesting definition of vulnerability by an expert researcher on the topic on vulnerability and shame, and she says, vulnerability means to have the courage to show up when we don't have control over the outcome. To be able to show up to a situation, to a person, and I don't know what will happen. It feels risky, but I have to do it. So vulnerability is actually courage. And she will say, try to think all the times you were courageous in your life, and you will see that in every one of those moments, you were vulnerable. There was some risk, there was some potential danger, some exposure. You cannot be courageous from the comfort zone, so to say. Everything is fine, quiet, and I'm super courageous. No. There needs to be some exposure, but it's required. Of course, we cannot be vulnerable to everyone and anyone, as we already talked many times. If I'm vulnerable with someone who doesn't know what to do with my vulnerability, that may end up in abuse. Even if the person doesn't have the intention of abusing me, but just not knowing what to do with vulnerability can be so traumatic. So we need to know where we remain naked internally in front of someone in a way that is empowering, that is nourishing us, not like traumatizing us. I like the Sanskrit word darshan for this. Now, darshan doesn't mean so much to see as it means to be seen. And to be seen, again, by the eyes of unconditional love. To be seen from that place so we can allow ourselves, we can show up to be seen. When we are taking darshan, it's good to think, I'm being seen for who I am, accepted, loved. So yeah, thank you. Can I go one there? And yeah. Do you tell me, Ramananda, when we are too late? I don't want also to transgress the rules. Yes.
I have a
You-
question.
yes.
It's actually a conflict which I have because we thought like we are already soul and we are already amazing and we are already loved.
Yes.
But then I have a problem. I call this myself the arrival syndrome because there is a tendency for me to always become something, you know. Like I live like this, oh, you have to become somebody, you have to become purified, you have to become in sattva, you know, as soon you practice spiritual practice or me, as soon I practice spiritual practice, I go into this arrival syndrome that I have to become sattvic, I have to become this, but on the other side, you are already somebody. And then you want to act like you want to heal, you want to chant, you want to like you want to become something. So how do you find the intention to practice without to fall into this arrival thing? You know?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there are a few things to say about arrival. The other day we were also talking about, I'll mention a few general things and go to a point. Many times we also conceive our practice like a goal-oriented practice. Like I'm here, but I need to get there. No? And it's always like getting there. Not yet, not yet, not yet. You are not there, you are not there. And in one way, we lose contact with here. So I like to say that our practice should, instead of being goal-oriented, should be presence-oriented. Like we should orient our practice to be here and now in the present moment, understanding everything is here and now. All that I need is here and now. It's not in the future somewhere else. It's in the present right here, right now. I may not be aware of that, but I have to be more present, not so much like getting, because I'll get there in a minute. We are practicing Bhakti. In our tradition, we practice Bhakti. And for us, Bhakti is, we practice Bhakti as the practice, but the goal of the practice is Bhakti. So we are not practicing Bhakti for something else. No, we are not loving, serving God, so the result of that is something different from that. No? So my point is, in that sense, if I'm practicing Bhakti and the goal is Bhakti, the goal already came. Of course, the goal is eternal, and I can always go deeper into the goal. But in one sense, the goal came. In one sense, you already reached the goal. In one sense, Bhakti came to your life, and if you practice Bhakti sincerely, so many verses in the scripture, Krishna says, there's no loss or diminution. You will be protected. My devotee never perishes. You will attain all success. Of course, if you become a monster who opposes Bhakti, but you don't seem that kind of people. So in that sense, we should have this healthy confidence that I'm already on the path to the goal. Already came, and I'm already there, and just my life continues celebrating that and going deeper into that. Because even when we reach the spiritual world, let's put it that way, you still continue to grow. It's not that you reach there, okay, no more Bhakti now, or no more development of love. No, that's what really you start to develop your love, if you want to put. So it never ends. So it's paradoxical. In one sense, you can always attain a deeper love. You can always arrive at the deeper love. But in another sense, you already arrive because you're already practicing Bhakti. You're already doing what you want to do for eternity. I want to do for eternity what I'm doing right now with you. So eternity is already here. You follow my point? So I think there's place to celebrate where we are, what came to our lives, and have some contentment, not contentment in the form of, again, I will just do nothing, but on the contrary, I mean, Krishna loves me, Bhakti came to my life, I'm already doing what I want to do for eternity. All that gives joy and happiness. Susu kam kartum, Krishna says in the Gita, you should practice Bhakti very happily. No? He doesn't say you should practice Bhakti with fear, intimidation, trauma, and all that stuff. No? If I make this aparat, Krishna may be angry, and next lifetime I will lose the human form. And I relax. I mean, do you think that Krishna is that bad of a guy? No, he's no Karuna Sindhu, an ocean of mercy. So there is a becoming, there is a development, but on the foundation of who we are. I mean, we are a soul. We are already a soul. We are already loved by Krishna, but we are not necessarily loving Krishna. So there is something to be done in that regard. And when we start to do that, there's no end to how much we can love Krishna. So in that sense, there's always a new point of arrival, but there's no final arrival. In the sense of you can always love Krishna more. That's what I mean, no final arrival. Maybe it's too complicated.
Well, maybe we can say
yes, please. Simplify all the stuff that I just said.
Maybe deep thankfulness in the inner path goes hand in hand with extreme longing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. He knows how to simplify what I'm saying. We needed this sutra. Thank you. So yeah, you can be fulfilled, you can be happy, you can celebrate. I'm loved by Krishna. Krishna's love came to me, all this came to me. But the nature of love is longing. That's it's paradoxical. It's paradoxical. Love gives fulfillment, and love creates always a necessity for more love.
Drinking ocean water.
Mm-hmm. But that's how love operates. Again, it's another set of laws, different from how things operate here. You find full rest, shelter, contentment, fulfillment, but longing. You can always love more. You can always love more. And that's what keeps eternity going on, so to say. Okay. Speaking about longing, thirst for more. Yeah. You have another question or comment or something?
No, I had a question, but it's funny how
it was already answered.
It was already quite answered.
It happens. Yeah, it happens.
My question was like to formulate it. I can really notice after so many years of just being with Krishna, being with mantra, being with devotees, one can see how in the beginning we are very impatient and we want to see these huge milestones and steps somehow happening. And after some years, and we look back, then we see some small steps and inner changes that happen that really truly give content to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I can really witness this happening and how it does become, after also not running away from the shadows, but facing them and seeing all of this, one can see that something small has changed. But it was nice what Krishna Chandra said, because for me it really is. Then the question arises: okay, it's nice to feel satisfaction on this level, but there is all this lolyan, exactly what we have been taught by our acharyas, and how to navigate this fine dance between these two things. Because if we are suffering, and I've also experienced this in my years when I try to be very Krishna conscious, but I have been really suffering with not accepting certain shadows of myself, how it doesn't work, but where is this fine balance of saying how to always go further, and how to keep this lolyan also alive, while finally feeling some relief of something shifting inside. So that was my question, which was inspired by the last answer, and just now also quite answered through.
Something else to add to the question? he gave the sutra. I mean, we have to unpack the
But
sutra.
it is still how do you then, like, when you say it is always this eagerness, this longing, like how to keep how to keep the thirst always there, like to having always more, to hear always more, like all
I
this.
think it needs both. First, this, even in yoga, one of the niyams is santushta.
Tushta.
So this means it's a practice.
What means that for those who don't know?
Yeah, it means a practice of contentment, Zufriedenheit. So, and I think the entrance for that is extreme thankfulness for the little things and openings. And suddenly this is a container to receive more. So, and that's why thankfulness and extreme longing go really hand in hand.
Also, one interesting definition of sukha and dukkha. Sukha, the space, the inner space actually. And one definition of sukha is a bigger inner space. Dukkha is tight, afraid. I'm just reacting all the time, of fear, of self-worthlessness and everything. So if there's space, first of all, I'm more relaxed, of course, but now I have the possibility to choose, to get in. How do I want to relate with myself, with the others, with God? So the space is necessary, and at the same time, it's peace also. It's a wonderful sukha dukkha thing. That's why sukha is, in the meaning of practice, it's needed.
Okay. Teresa?
I just have a quick thing in response. I recently read that often, even if we receive just a little bit of taste of mercy, we're very quick to think that has become our right.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we think it becomes our right, then the beauty of it vanishes. And then that longing isn't there anymore.
Yeah, that's the paradox of unconditional love, that you are receiving a gift that you haven't earned, and then we do not operate usually like that. We just operate from deserving and earning, and this is beyond that. So it requires another way of thinking about it, whole reset, rebooting of the system. Like we say, unconditional love is too much to be deserved. No, it's not that you are worthless, it's just that that's too much to just try to deserve it. It has to operate on another dimension, so to say. We're almost 2 hours, so I don't want to. Yes, please.
Just a short question.
Course,
In the very beginning, you mentioned something about self-love and also others who are doing things to us which are not nice. How to also give them love. I tried to memorize it, and I don't. You said it so nicely. It's
recorded. It's okay. Because I don't remember either.
I'm asking because right now I accompanied a bit a friend who is also a friend of the devotee, kind of a devotee. But things happened to him, which he at the moment is very frustrated and angry with, and I'm trying to help him out of this frustration and anger. But at the moment, he just sees, they did really wrong to me, and how to. With what message could I help him most to get out of this pointing nature? They did really bad to me. What would you suggest?
Again, I don't know you are telling me the situation, but I don't know the person and the details, and each person is different, and sometimes it's not possible to do anything at some period. At some period, the person is like, and you just cannot. You can try. We must try, but also sometimes we must also need to know when. Okay, I cannot do anything. I'm not Superman. Also, no? I cannot just change everyone's lives. But of course, we can always pray for that person and be there, present, accompany, even in silence. But be there for the person, even if we are not. Because sometimes trying to tell something to the person in some moments is the worst thing we can do. And sometimes the person just needs, maybe it's angry, or maybe, I don't know, to give an example, someone is betrayed or someone is abused, and they need their space to be like, and it's not the moment to say, don't do that, you have to love that person unconditionally. Listen this class of Swami. You can say that maybe in a few weeks, but first the person needs to go through all those other emotions. And again, I don't know if this is the case, each situation is unique, but yeah, it's a whole art, and sometimes we learn it by trial and error, no? And sometimes we learn when to speak, when not to speak, how to be present, and offer more unconditional love silently. Then sometimes we think, no, I just have to tell the person what's the actual truth, and it's just what we think is the best thing, but maybe the person just needs to be given permission to be what the person is in that moment, and you are there, you are not labeling and judging and rejecting or even advising. Which again, listening, receiving, that's not so easy. The tendency is, you tell me something and I want to preach to you, so to say. I want to tell you what to do, and sometimes that's not necessary. Just the person needs to feel, I'm being received unconditional, and that in itself starts to be a healing experience for the person, of feeling himself, herself received, listened. That starts to change the whole whatever hate or resentfulness or stuff. May take time, but I would say that's a good foundation. I don't know if our psychologist here validates the opinion.
Yes.
Okay. I'm professionally supported here.
Yeah. Often it's just to add a little.
Yes.
Often it's very important. There's a beautiful saying in emotion-focused therapy by Leslie Greenberg. Beautiful. If you want to leave a place, you first will have to arrive at the place. So maybe that person needs first of all to arrive at the end and perceive it really, and you giving that person the space, because, and this is super important for them to realize what is my anger actually, and discover it as a beautiful life force. For example, anger is so important in our lives to understand my borders across, for example. So, and then if you don't feel anger, and many people have an issue of not feeling anger, they don't connect with the needs. So it's very important.
Yeah.
And there's another thing, what I often perceive with clients and patients of mine, that the private, like friends and families, they often give Ratschläge in German. And Ratschläge, this means advice, but in the German language you have Ratschlag, it's like a hit also, like advice.
Okay.
And this is often the experience. They mean it well, the family members, they mean it so well, but look at the sun, we live in Switzerland, it's so beautiful, why are you so depressed? We have food every day, isn't it wonderful? And it feels like
or I tell them, I went through something worse than you.
Yes. Or like this, so it feels for the person, my pain has no right. So this is even making more pain, so I shut up next time. So arrive first there and give them. It's exactly what we talked about before. Just giving this.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I hope that helps.
That helps a lot. Thank you.
So we can conclude here, so we can have some time to also, we have to process all this now. I have to process that myself. As I always say, I open my mouth now, but Krishna is saying, oh, you talk all those things, let's see how much you put them in practice now. So I'll have my own beautiful challenges to to have integrity with my words. So I need my time to integrate that. But thank you so much to all of you for coming, for your time, your presence, your attention, your openness, your questions. Hope to, it's not the last time we meet, and thank you for giving me the chance of sharing something in service. Krishna Chandraji, thanks so much. Just having him close, even if he didn't share that much openly, his presence is reassuring and empowering. So, thank you to all of you.